Hello, I'm Helena Huang with the Art for Justice Fund, and I want to welcome you to a special post-Clyde's program. Clyde's is a powerful, thought-provoking play, one that begins to change the narrative around mass incarceration by beautifully illuminating the humanity of those enmeshed in our criminal justice system. Tonight's simulcast was seen by more than 250 justice-impacted people, including a group at the Rose M. Singer Center on Rikers Island. It was incredibly important to the creative team that this show be made accessible to this community. Art for Justice is a time-limited catalytic fund, and we are dedicated to supporting artists and activists working in common cause to end mass incarceration in the US, and it was founded by the amazing art collector and philanthropist Agnes Gund. Second Stage is the only theater company on Broadway dedicated exclusively to developing and producing works by living American playwrights. Additionally, Second Stage builds future audiences by educating young people about the art of contemporary theater and encouraging their participation in the cultural life of New York City. At Art for Justice, we are proud to have supported Second Stage Theater, and they have worked as hard on their educational programming and outreach for Clyde's as they have on their extraordinary production. Among their efforts, Second Stage hosted audience talkbacks with local and national criminal justice reform organizations, launched a paid internship for justice-impacted youth, and disseminated resources about fair chance hiring employment practices. We are proud that Clyde's has received significant media attention, not just for its beautiful play, but also shining a light on the importance of fair chance hiring practices. I am so very pleased to introduce our three panelists. First, playwright Lynn Nottage, a two-time Pulitzer Prize winner. She's been recognized with an Obie, an Evening Standard Award, a Drama Desk Award, a Guggenheim Fellowship, and a MacArthur Genius Grant. In addition to Clyde's, Lynn also has a musical currently on Broadway, MJ. Here in New York City, we have director Kate Whoriskey, who has worked on and off of Broadway. She has multiple credits at leading regional theaters, including the Guthrie, Goodman, American Repertory Theater, Arena Stage, and Geffen Playhouse. In addition to theater, Kate is also an internationally recognized opera director. And then last but certainly not least, we have Darren Walker, the president of the Ford Foundation. Darren serves on many boards, including Lincoln Center for the Performing Arts, the National Gallery of Arts, Carnegie Hall, and the Committee to Protect Journalists. I am personally grateful to Darren, who is a primary architect and leading champion of the Art for Justice Fund, and he is a much valued and beloved board member. Darren, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Elena. I am thrilled, indeed honored, to be here with these two amazing artists. Lynn and Kate, I'm eager to hear from you about Clyde, the inspiration, how you made this amazing production possible. And I'm going to start with you, Lynn Nottage. I want to congratulate you on this beautiful and moving play. Clyde's is about so much. It's about good and evil, an exploration of restorative justice and the healing power of food. How did the idea for this story first come about? And what was your inspiration?
Thanks so much, Darren. I just have to send my appreciation to the Ford Foundation and Art for Justice for supporting this, supporting Clyde's. I began really thinking about this story when I was interviewing people in Reading, Pennsylvania, when I was working on my play Sweat, which is about a group of steel workers whose friendship is fractured along racial lines when they're locked out of their factory. And I spent a lot of time in Reading, Pennsylvania, which is this very small city, which is at the tail end of the Rust Belt. And it used to be this industrial powerhouse, and it had the Reading Railroad and factories and mills, and it's where the notion of the outlet mall was introduced. People used to, take the bus from New York City to get down there. And it had this very robust economy. And I heard from many of the people that I was interviewing that there was a time when a person could literally get off a bus in Reading, Pennsylvania, in 10 minutes get a job that was well paying, that had benefits. And as a result, the prison system used to drop folks in Reading, Pennsylvania when they got out. And because there was just so much opportunity and there was this need for young workers and they were very much in demand. But then, the economy had an economic downturn and took a big hit, and that opportunity completely went away. But the prison system continued to send young men and young women to Reading, Pennsylvania, and they got stuck there. And as a result, when I was interviewing people, I spoke to a lot of folks who were formerly incarcerated and were super keen to get back to work and had found themselves completely stuck in what was a liminal space because there really was no opportunity in Reading, Pennsylvania, other than the social services that were provided by the city. And when these folks that I was talking to began seeking employment, they kept hitting up against that box that they had to sign, stating that they were formerly incarcerated, and that box was just killing all of their opportunity. They also found that they didn't have the resources to put a down payment, something that, we take for granted, on an apartment. And so they found themselves with housing insecurity as well. And this was something that was so common amongst the people that I was interviewed, and they felt invisible. I mean, that's something that I heard repeatedly, is that we're out here, we're struggling, but no one's seeing our struggle. So I became really deeply interested in how folks who were living in that liminal space, these people who, are deemed disposable by our society, were going about resurrecting their lives. And I encountered this one incredible man named Dr. Will, and Kate, you remember him, and he had received his PhD while he was in prison in psychology. And when he came out, he was really determined to engage with his community. And he was building green markets, he was establishing these economic power zones for young entrepreneurs of color. And he had, he was just like this incredibly magical and positive presence in the city. And I was very much thinking about him when I was writing Clyde's. I was drawn to his resilience. I was drawn to his optimism. I was drawn to the way in which he was able to use all of these very simple ingredients, which is sort of the metaphor of the play, to resurrect his life. And I think in part, the play really came out of wanting to capture what I experienced when I was interviewing him.
Thank you. Just to hear you talk, Lynn, it's magic, it's poetry, it's lyricism, it's just beautiful. And I want to ask you, Kate, first, I do have to say your directing is just pitch perfect. You really directed Clyde's in a way in which we experienced the emotional roller coaster that is this production. You careen from comedy and tragedy, love and hate, optimism and hopelessness. How did you assemble this dream cast? And I know this is not the first time you and Lynn Nottage have collaborated. I want you to talk a little bit about that because you do have some history here that's relevant.
Yeah, I will say I learned today in preparing for the interview that it's been 20 years that we've known each other. And we've been saying 15 for a while. And I was like, at some point we have to say 20. So now it's 20 years that we've known each other. And in the 20 years, people always ask, what is your dynamic? Why does it work so well? And we never really have a particularly good answer. And I think that it's just because in a way there's something mysterious and it works. And if I look back on the 20 years, the things that I'm most proud of are the things that I've done with Lynn. And I think that we both search for the same kind of meaning. So I think that's just a bit about our relationship. And then in terms of the cast, we were really looking for people who could be grounded in the reality of the circumstances of people's lives in Reading, and also people who were sort of comic geniuses who could really land a joke and knew the math. And there's no one better than Uzo, who has an Emmy. She's one of two actors who has an Emmy for both comedy and drama. So she was perfect, right? She is perfect for the role. And then Ron Cephas-Jones, who has a long history with Stephen Adly-Girgis, also is someone who can do realism and comedy. And then we had these wonderful trio, Reza Salazar, Edmund Donovan, and Kara Young, who are terrific and so ambitious and so truthful and just a wonderful company.
But there is something really special. I mean, you and Lynn have forged that kind of 21st century Rodgers and Hammerstein, if you will, for justice and for the issues that really are relevant for today. And I just think it'd be good just to hear you both just riff on that a little bit about your partnership. And Lynn, from your standpoint, Kate just talked about it. How does it feel on your end?
Sure. I mean, it is surprising to think about it being 20 years, but it's been 20 wonderful years. And I think that Kate has been one of my central collaborators, in part because I think we share a vocabulary, and it's really hard to find a fellow artist, a fellow traveler who immediately understands the language that you speak. And just by way of example, when we were working on my play Ruined, and we had traveled to East Africa to interview women who were fleeing the armed conflict in Democratic Republic of Congo, one of the things that we decided to do is that we were going to keep day journals and write down everything that we saw and experienced, and then we'd compare notes at the end of the day. And I remember coming back at the end of the day, and we had the same experiences, but we saw completely different things. Kate had this wonderful visual sensibility and was capturing, the sights and sounds. And I was like honing in on the conversations. And what we realized is that together, it was a complete vision.
Yeah, that's powerful. I want both of you to talk a little bit about Second Stage's commitment, really, and it's certainly manifest in your work, the productions you've brought to Second Stage, the issues around our mass incarceration system, the racialized classism that we see, the ways in which the system is so pernicious in its targeting, particularly of people of color and lower income people, and why you think this issue of employment and fair chance employment and hiring is so important, and how Clyde's manifest both the dreams and aspirations, hopes, but also difficult, painful reality for justice impacted citizens. Talk a little bit about why you believe Second Stage and theater and the audiences you hope to reach, what you hope they take away, the various audiences from this production.
There's so much to unpack there. I mean, I can begin perhaps with what I want the folks to take away, and then sort of back into the other part of the question. I think that the play is very much about mindfulness and resilience. And one of the things that I want people to take away is that everyone has something to contribute. Without giving the ending of the play away, the characters take a journey where in the end they realize that they all have this very special ingredient that's necessary to complete the sandwich. And that sandwich is never going to taste quite as good unless all of those flavors are there. And all of those flavors are savored and appreciated. And that's really what I want people to leave with when they exit the play. And I was also thinking a lot about the concept of wabi-sabi, the Japanese concept, which is finding beauty in things that are deemed broken or imperfect. And it's not about hiding the cracks, but really figuring out how do you mend things in ways that are seamless so that you integrate the whole. And it allows people a certain kind of contemplation. And so that's what I want people to leave with. And just segueing into, why Second Stage is initiating some of the projects that we are initiating, through Art for Justice, is that I think of art and I think of theater as being this grand conversation that you get to have with an audience on multiple levels. And you can invite a variety of people in to have that experience. And particularly in this moment in which we've gone through this cultural reckoning, it's really important for us to rethink the ways in which theater can function in our society. So often, theater has been prohibitively expensive. There's certain kinds of people who are attracted to it. And I think the onus is on us as theater makers to begin to sort of dismantle some of those practices and push up against the gatekeepers and say, there are other ways to invite people in, and there are other ways in which we can reach audiences. And Kate, you can probably talk a little bit about some of the initiatives that we have.
Yeah, Hadi has been doing beautiful work at Second Stage in developing programs. And one of the programs that she's developed is an apprenticeship program for justice-impacted youth. And some of the folks came in for rehearsal, and it was really wonderful for them to come in, and we could talk to them just about what we were doing, and they could get a sense of what life is in the theater, and the various options and roles that we have available in terms of, like, there's house management, there's designers, there are actors, directors, and writers. And it was a wonderful experience for both I'm assuming the apprentices, but also for us to be in dialogue. And then the other thing they had is on Thursday nights they had a conversation, a talk back with people for the Arts for Justice, and that was really it was really a wonderful evening. Every Thursday, that's when I go to the theater now. I go every Thursday to hear the conversations because they're really beautiful. And I think the relationship to who is Clyde and who is Montrellis and what do they represent. Those conversations are gorgeous in terms of just hearing people say, this battle between believing what society so often tells people who are incarcerated versus listening to the internal voice within yourself that wants to grow. And it's been also really a wonderful experience for people, I think, who have been incarcerated to bond and be in a room with other folks about a subject that is so dear to them. And then there are other programs as well. We're going to Rikers to do a workshop there, and then we're also doing a simulcast with a few prisons as well, so people who are incarcerated can see the play.
Thank you. We've got 3 audience questions that I hope you'll spend some time responding to. The first audience question is from Xavier McElrath in Washington, D.C., who is the co-executive director of the Campaign for the Fair Sentencing of Youth. The organization's mission is to catalyze the just and equitable treatment of children in the United States by demanding a ban on life without parole and other extreme sentences for young people who cause harm, and to secure a response that is trauma-informed and restorative. Here's what Xavier shared. We're a fair chance employer, and today a third of our team, including myself, are formerly incarcerated. How can we as an organization use art to help encourage other organizations and companies to value the unique qualities, insights, and skills of people who have been justice system impacted? That's a big question, and I'd love to hear your response.
Well, my response as a storyteller is that there's immense value in using art to amplify the stories of people who are incarcerated and are formerly incarcerated. It's an opportunity to tell the stories of folks in three dimensions. And also one of the things that I think is really important is celebrating their successes. It's opportunity to let folks know that, you know, prison is not the end, that people come out and they have these beautiful, robust lives, and it's really essential that we see them. Art can make people quite simply visible, you know, give you a window into their lives. And with Clyde's, you know, that's one of the things that we wanted to do is just amplify some of the stories that we encountered when we're in Reading, Pennsylvania. And we hope, you know, that this is the beginning of a larger conversation.
So I would also add that there's something to me about theater in which you can, because it's metaphor, it's a safer space, right? Sometimes when you're talking about like the national consciousness and activists, there's tension because people feel like, well, wait a minute, I want to feel protected and I want to be safe in my environment. And so therefore there needs to be, you know, a fairly stern penal system. But when you actually meet people on stage who have been incarcerated and you fall in love with them, there's something really wonderful because your heart is open. And then you recognize that you may want to look at that issue differently. And I feel like theater is a safe place to build empathy, and then that can extend past the walls of the theater into real human relationships. And to me, that's the beauty of what theater can do.
Thanks, Kate. And this next question is for you, and it comes from Tyra Patterson in Cincinnati, Ohio. Tyra is the Community Outreach Strategy Specialist at Ohio Justice and Policy Center. They provide high-quality legal assistance and advocate for a redemptive criminal legal system. Tyra spent 23 years incarcerated for murder and robbery, crimes she did not commit. She recently spearheaded the creation of the public mural, Time Saved versus Time Served, that lifts up contributions of returning citizens in building a more just society. And here's what Tyra had to say. I'm excited that you're directing a play about formerly incarcerated people who are reclaiming their lives and having purpose. The characters find a lot of hope despite their difficult circumstances. How do you and the actors establish the complicated and ever-changing rhythms and tones in Clyde's? For you, Kate.
Yes. Okay. So first off, that's incredible work, right? It's beautiful work that you do. But also, I would say that to me, one of my favorite plays is Tennessee Williams' Rose Tattoo, and why I love it is the first half is a drama and the second half is a comedy. And to me, that's what life is. Life is actually so much about, you know, a tragedy happening and then some like beautiful moment, like you fall in love, or, you know, someone has a mental health issue, and then the sky opens and it's quite beautiful and it's the most gorgeous day, right? Life has these contradictions, and Lynn seems to be like Tennessee Williams on speed, where it just feels like every other moment we're going back and forth between something beautiful and something incredibly difficult. I think the way that we learned to do it in rehearsal is to make sure that you are in the present moment, right? Because you can't hold on to a monologue that's a tragic monologue and then also tell a joke, right? You have to just keep moving on to the next beat of the play. And so what we really did is we really very carefully listened to Lynn's writing and did beat by beat what she wanted.
That's wonderful. So the final question is to you, Lynn. It comes from lawyer and poet Dwayne Betts in New Haven, Connecticut, who is the founder of a new and exciting organization called Freedom Reads. Freedom Reads harnesses the power of literature to counter what prison does to the spirit by supporting incarcerated people to transform their lives through increased access to books, writers, and the performing arts. Here's what Dwayne shared. It's great to see you writing plays like Clyde's. You understand these stories intimately. As an artist, how do you make sure you get it right? Especially given all the ways our personal understandings and political commitments might lead us to feel obligated to strike a note in deference to those in prison? Lynn.
Well, thank you, Dwayne, for that question. And I really deeply appreciate everything that you're doing, and congratulations on all of your success. As a storyteller, I think it's always super important to lean into the truth of the characters. And I have this phrase that I cling to, which is sustaining the complexity. And so anything that I enter into, I put my full body into the process. You know, I'm an immersive artist. It's not enough for me to read a book to understand what's happening. I feel like I have to go to the source and I have to ask those difficult questions. And with regards to Clyde's, I have family members who've been incarcerated for most of their lives, people who were near and dear to me. I have folks that I grew up with who lived on my block, you know, who were incarcerated, who I had relationships with when I was young, and, you know, continue to have friendships with them now that they're out. And I've also spent time actually teaching in the prison system at Bedford Hills. And so I have a real intimacy with this topic, for better or for worse. And so I think that when I was writing the play, I wasn't writing it from a distance. I was writing it from a very personal and a very intimate place.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's well said, Lynn. And I think the proximity that you have had and continue to have absolutely comes through. So congratulations to both of you. This is truly a tour de force and a gift to the nation, a gift to America, to understand what we must do as a nation to recognize the assets of humanity that are in so many cases treated unfairly and unjustly by our criminal justice system. So thank you both. I want to thank Second Stage for its leadership in theater. It is clearly helping to forge a paradigm at the nexus of art and justice. So congratulations to you all. And now we are going to experience the beauty of a video featuring our esteemed director.
Thank you.
And our guest today is Lynn Nottage,
the recipient of a MacArthur Genius Grant Fellowship,
professor of playwriting at Columbia University,
the only woman to have won 2 Pulitzer Prizes for drama twice,
and one of the most important voices of the American theater of this and the last century.
Agnes Gund is a philanthropist and collector of modern and contemporary art.
She has been in the vanguard of leading art institutions for more than 3 decades.
A fearless and fierce advocate of artists and social justice issues.
Hi, Lynn.
Hello. Good morning.
So great to speak with you.
Thank you. And I have to just begin by saying it's such an incredible honor to be interviewed by you.
Thank you very much. I wondered if I could ask you how you were drawn to incarcerated people.
My father worked in corrections in the 1960s and 70s, and my brother's in DA. I have family members who spent the majority of life incarcerated. And so my life, in some ways, revolves around this system that has really been designed to punish Black men. I haven't really, in my work, explored this particular subject until now. And I began doing so when I was working on a play called Sweat.
What about work?
Looking.
You follow up those leads I gave you?
Yeah, went down there, filled out a few applications, but they ain't offering nothing real. I'm talking bullshit, you know, $7, $8 an hour.
You gotta be getting somewhere.
I guess. And I keep hitting up against that box. That damn question's like a barbed wire fence. Can't get over it, can't get around.
I know.
I I found myself speaking to a lot of formerly incarcerated folks in homeless shelters who felt absolutely stuck.
Yeah, as you say, when it's written down that you are a felon, when you go looking for a job, then that wipes out all the chances that you have.
You know, it's like Brian Stevenson said, is people are not the worst crimes that they have committed and that everyone is entitled to forgiveness. Storytelling is really at the center of shaping our cultural narrative. And I speak as a playwright to conjure stories that can help people understand on a deeper level who their neighbors are, who their adversaries are, or who their own family is. We had raised some money to bring the play back to Reading, Pennsylvania, because the play was based upon them. We had this incredible experience of sharing it with that community. And after the curtain came down, there was the silence and then applause, and we did this talk back, almost like a church revival in which people stood up and they testified and they shared their experiences. It did what theater is supposed to do, which was give people catharsis, and you could feel people moving toward a place of healing. We were able to break through the traditional barriers that exist between audience and artists and build community in spaces that were not necessarily designed to house theater.
That's what I think you do so magnificently in forming this community outside of the play.
Yeah, you know, what it taught me is that you don't have to turn out the lights in order to have this experience. Theater is really about what you make it.
Yeah.
It's like how you shape those stories and how you connect with audiences.
That's terrific.
I was walking to my office, and it's a walk that I take often, and there's this basketball court that has been recently refurbished that has all this lighting, and I thought, this is a perfect place for theater to happen. You know, the audience is already there. I really am hopeful, and something that I'm thinking a lot about is what can we do to really shift this paradigm? Our job is really to build empathy and to provide this tiny little window into the world of another person. Once we're able to inhabit the space of another, we're able to access our empathy. And once we begin doing that, then we can really move toward healing.
I believe that art is transformative.
Yeah.
And creates the compassion and empathy necessary to drive social change and racial justice.
Yeah, you know, we can begin from there.